Definitely thanks for that introduction, James. And cool, so good afternoon and welcome to this Leanplum webinar, part of the App Promotion Summit Series 2020. I'd like to really start by thanking APS for the huge logistical task they've had to do to move this from a live venue event to an online venue event. Clearly a pretty huge task. Today we're going to be talking about how to deliver best-in-class user engagement by driving metrics such as retention, engagement, customer lifetime value, monetization, and loyalty. And I'd also like to thank everyone who's joined today. You know, myself and Brooke were super excited to get a chance to come and see you all in London, to present live, to do a Q&A, and personally, I was particularly excited to do the drinks at the end of the evening, and I'm even more excited to do the drinks nowadays, especially seeing as I've sat in the flat for 2 weeks going slightly insane. But hopefully, we'll all have a chance to meet and drink in the upcoming months. And we've shared our contact details here. This is also at the end, so we can definitely answer any questions that we have. So we've had the agenda for today is I'm going to introduce Brooke, or Brooke will introduce herself, myself, I do a quick introduction into Leanplum, and then we'll dive into today's content as well. Brooke?
Yeah, thanks, David. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Good to be here. My name is Brooke. I'm a CSM here at Leanplum. So what that means is daily I'm working with clients across all different verticals, sharing best practices, ensuring optimization throughout that user journey from onboarding to engagement and conversion and retention.
Perfect. Thanks, Brooke. And my name is David Woods. I'm a mobile growth strategist over here at Leanplum. And what that means is my job to work with the brands that we'd love to work with, understand your current situation, your challenges, your goals, where you'd like to be in 6, 12, 24, 36 months, and help you deploy that, generate and design that campaign on that deployment, which obviously then Brooke would help you deploy. Cool, so a quick introduction into Leanplum as well. Our American marketing will tell you we're the multi-channel customer engagement platform that helps marketeers win. I think what we're really doing is we're helping brands meet the real-time demands of their customers, you know, creating the loyalty that fuels growth. An interesting note about Leanplum is we were actually founded in 2013 by 2 ex-Google engineers who designed a brilliant A/B testing platform for YouTube. They took that to market, and that's how we started. And now, 7 years on, we're still obsessed by data and A/B testing, and user profile and user data is still at the heart of our platform. But we're now very much a very well-rounded and comprehensive engagement platform that allows you to understand your users and then deploy highly personalized and segmented campaigns across a wealth of channels: push, email, in-app, and many others. But what we really want to talk to you about today is what we're helping our brands with. We're powering engagement for some of the world's top brands, and you can see some of the clients that we work with here across a wealth of different sectors. And we were really happy last year to welcome huge apps and mobile first brands such as King Gaming, the guys who do Candy Crush, Zenly, Takeaway over in Germany, and a wealth of other brands that are now partnering with Leanplum to deliver this engagement. And what we're really delivering is that real-time engagement to drive retention. And why is retention such a massive issue for brands nowadays? Well, as you can see here, you know, the cost of acquisition to get a download nowadays is soaring. The App Store, the Google Play Store, overflowing with new apps. New apps launched all the time. So brands are spending more than ever to acquire these incredibly valuable downloads. But there's a challenge. I work with brands who want to get thousands, tens of thousands, not millions of monthly active users. And therefore, you can see the massive investment that brands are making to acquire these users. But there's a real challenge that comes with this. The retention rate for apps typically isn't great after day 1, day 10, and day 90. A good personal example is just recently, now we're all on lockdown in the UK, I downloaded the Deliveroo and the Just Eat app. I've used Deliveroo a few times. I haven't used Just Eat yet. I haven't even opened it because Deliveroo's helping me well at the moment. So we can look at some day 1 retention rates of just 21%. So only 21% of users who downloaded your app yesterday are going to use it today. And that could be as low as 7.5 by day 10, and as low as 1.7 by day 90. A leading UK online fashion brand recently spoke at an event and talked about how apps can turn users or downloads into super customers. And what they mean by this is when they took their entire customer base and they looked at them from a digital perspective, web and app, they saw that their app power users were their most valuable customers. They were the customers that were viewing the most products, spending the most time in their digital stores, having the highest order values, the bigger baskets, more like frequency to purchase, and definitely a higher customer lifetime value. And we definitely see this too. When Leanplum customers deploy multi-channel messaging, we're seeing them increase retention 7 times over. But clearly, creating highly effective marketing campaigns is a real challenge. We need to understand who our target audience is, what channels we should be communicating. Is it push? Is it email? Is it in-app? What content should we be deploying via these channels? Should it be scheduled? Should it be triggered? When's the best time to send these messages? How many people are going to receive it? How many people have opted into my email and push? And what's the frequency? Am I going to begin to irritate and over message our users? So the answer, the question that we want to answer for you guys today is, how can we build highly effective, bear with me 1 second, hold jump up, but I don't know how to move out the way. James, can you help me with that, perchance?
It's not on the screen, FYI, David. It's
okay,
so the presentation is still good.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Clearly we didn't do that in the run through the poll, no worries. So the question we want to answer is, how can we design super highly effective marketing campaigns that solve that initial retention challenge, but then also to help turn out downloads into super customers? So yeah, over to yourself, Brooke.
Yeah, thanks, David. Exactly. So how are we going to deliver that best-in-class engagement and make your app the go-to? First, what we want to do is really start by understanding who your users are, right? So who is using your app, your services, or buying your product, and what can you know about them? All of these data points, whether it's their demographics, so what region they're located in, city, country, maybe what device they're using, how many purchases they've made or games they've completed. And you can think of these as all the different ways in which you can slice and dice your audience. You can use this to trigger campaigns when a user does a specific event, or even to personalize the content of the message with this information. At the end of the day, the richer the information you have about your users, the more equipped you will be to engage with them in the right way at the right time throughout that user journey. Next, what we want to do is then create user definitions to really understand the different phases that a user can be in throughout the life cycle. This can be a little bit different for every business, but generally it's going to look something along the lines of this. So we start with that newly acquired user, let's say users who just have downloaded your mobile app. Then they typically move into that onboarding phase where your communication is probably focused on maybe some tips and tricks or some tutorial screens that maybe encourage them to create an account or complete that first exercise if you're a workout app. But to go one step further, you can even poll again. Here we go. To go one step further, you can even create those sub definitions based on user activity within a certain phase. So for example, within the retain bucket that you see here, not all users are going to be the same, right? A user could be a power user. So someone that is actively using your app and let's say has made 3 meals purchases in the last 30 days. Where on the other hand, you can have a hesitant user also within this retain phase. Someone who's shown browsing interest and interested to buy, however, they didn't make a purchase yet. This is a prime example of 2 users that would fall into that same category, but really deserve different communication. Then once we have a better understanding of what these user definitions are laid out to be, we can start to create a series of messages and campaigns for each phase that then drive these users toward those desired milestones or what you would like them to achieve. Ultimately, you're guiding your users to that next step in the funnel with the goal of turning them into those loyal customers. So what does that look like when it all comes together? I'm sure you all have something like this laid out somewhere, but it's always good to revisit it as it's an ongoing process and customers' behaviors are always changing. In an ideal world, users will become engaged, they will convert and turn into loyal users. But on the other hand, you might need to focus on reactivating the customers before they uninstall. At the beginning of the life cycle, we have the onboarding phase, which is so crucial because it's the first impression to your users. And let's be honest, impressions are just as important on dates as they are in engagement. Another poll. Yep. But there's many things you can do to improve that overall retention in the onboarding phase. So by sending onboarding reminders to users, you can already increase that day 1 retention by 40%. One of our customers is a music discovery and mobile ticketing platform that was expanding to the US. Unfortunately, that was an extremely saturated market owned by Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So they really wanted to differentiate themselves from day 1. In order to do that, they decided to create personalized onboarding flows that highlighted all the different aspects of their app based on if the user has explored that area or not. For example, if a user signed up but didn't scan their library, their emails would highlight the steps to go and do that and the benefits of doing so. So they started to see quickly results that users who were receiving these more curated onboarding flows were converting 5% more, and they also saw an increase in those music libraries scanned, which is a really important milestone for them. So I think the key takeaway here is that we need to personalize as much as possible, right? Even in the beginning, where the user journey, when you don't know that much about the user. David will talk a little bit more about personalization later on. Then we get to engagement, right? Multi-channel strategies across email, push, in-app messages, they can really pay off. But I think what's even more important is that we need to make sure that the messaging is relevant to your users. So I'm sure we can all think of that company that totally forgot about that and eventually led us to install. We don't want to be that company. So going back, you really need to understand your users at that deep personal level. So know where they are, their messaging preferences, what matters to them before you start spamming. We also all know TED, right? A community that's devoted to spreading great ideas and sparking conversations. And kudos to them, they're actually in the 90th percentile of apps that actually have users keep their app on their device without uninstalling. And they generally have, of course, good reviews and ratings as well. But what they felt is that they could improve their engagement even more. So they had the idea to come up with a curated series around 10 days of positive thinking. So one push for 10 days, each promoting a different talk around this theme. With this campaign, they saw a 10% increase in talks watched, and push open rates were 72% higher than average, which is, I think it's incredible. So a couple reasons why this worked. It was tightly curated around a topic that resonated with a lot of people. It had a clear start and end date, and it was a realistic cadence. So 10 days, it wasn't a couple of months. Really easy for those users to opt into. So I think, or I challenge you to think of, how you can maybe replicate this already today, because with the current state we're in, I think many users would really respond to a mini challenge or topic like this right now. Then we go to conversion. There's many things that can block an engaged user from converting, right? Customers are abandoning their cart all the time, 90%, as you can see here. Maybe it's a pricing issue, and then there's the app itself. Is your checkout process seamless, or is there a lot of friction for users to really get what they came for? Whatever it might be, it's important to constantly test and optimize that potential lifetime value in this phase of the journey. We all know holidays are such a crucial time for most companies to really optimize those sales. So what one of our customers did last year is they decided to run a cross-sell and upsell campaign in an attempt to increase that overall purchases during this really important time. So after a user made a purchase, they triggered a series of messages using in-app push as well as email to then recommend other products that this user might like. They had a 25% conversion in users who went back and purchased additional products. While this focuses on a specific time of year, this is something you can easily incorporate all year round with recommendations on other products, games, restaurants, whatever is applicable for your app. Loyalty, app loyalty. It's one of the key factors that separate successful apps from unsuccessful ones. I don't know about you, but I love a good rewards program. I think America does it so well, but I really want to get it up to speed here in Europe as well, because I'm flying Delta KLM for that extra 50 euros before I book that EasyJet flight. To keep users coming back, sometimes a little incentive is all it takes. So even if you're a workout or a gaming app, simply congratulating them for maybe reaching a new milestone will also do the job. I really love this one. One of our customers was new in the financial market, and they were offering customers rewards points when they use their credit cards. But what they saw is that most users were not redeeming those rewards points, so they wanted to try to promote this through some of their engagement. So what they did is for International Women's Day, they teamed up with a local foundation to encourage users to redeem these rewards by donating to a cause. And the results are really touching. 90% of all the rewards that were ever given were actually viewed on that day of the push, and 6.7% of users who received the push actually donated. They ended up with over 14K rewards donations for that Women's Day. So, not only will users feel good about donating to a great cause, in the future, this company, I for sure think, will be top of mind because of these types of incentives and initiatives that they're doing. Last but not least, we have reactivation. User retention is obviously a big problem for all marketing teams. As David mentioned earlier, the average cost per install is steep enough already, and retention by day 90 is not great. But at the end of the day, it isn't the end of the world, because majority of engaged users don't actually uninstall your app. Maybe there's a new feature that you can announce, or a product announcement that can lure them in or incentivize them, maybe with a special promotion. One of our customers, Via, also known as Via Van here in Europe, they wanted to re-engage with their dormant users, but then also improve the stickiness of the app, because they were experiencing a lot of irregular rides taken by their users. So they decided to run a multi-touch campaign involving both email and in-app messages, and ultimately the campaign proved to be a success. 27% of more users came back into the app, and then they continued to take rides over the next 3 weeks or more. Now I'll pass it over to David to speak about the effectiveness of personalization.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Brooke. Thanks so much for that. So I think what Brooke's spoken about there is just really spoken about understanding the different states that customers can be in through a life cycle journey. We work so hard to get the download, but then that customer may be in a downloaded state. We want to get them onboarded. We want to then get them engaged. We want to get them retained. We want to get them spending. We want to get them to become a VIP customer. And therefore, it's really important to consider the different campaigns and the different channels and how we should engage with each of those customers at a different life cycle stage, to engage them, to get them to move to the next step. But I think what's important is, irrespective of whichever stage they are in that life cycle journey, or indeed what channel that we want to engage with them, we want to do it in the most appropriate way that's going to drive the highest engagement and conversion that we're after. And a great way to do that is to deploy effective personalization. Personalization really begins with data. We need to be able to understand the individual before we can personalize the content to them. So this is a quick overview of Leanplum, but it's a nice way to just demonstrate data. On the left hand, and the kinds of data that we can leverage to begin to deploy high personalization. You can see on the left-hand side, so there's some examples of the data that you can bring into platforms such as Leanplum. Perhaps you're working with an existing marketing cloud. Perhaps you're using with an attribution provider. Perhaps you have a tag management or a CDP system in place. And all of this data can enrich the user profile in Leanplum. And when the SDK is either on the web or in the app, we can also track all that live, known live behavior as well. So the combination of that known lots of attributes and details about the user, combined with knowing exactly what they're up to in real-time moment, can allow us to deploy very highly effective and targeted personalized campaigns. So what kind of content do we want to personalize? Well, we definitely want to personalize the messaging that is going out, and we want to consider things such as their demographic info. What demographic information do we know about our users, and how can we leverage that in messaging? Brooke talked about the life cycle stage. I've intentionally left the Z in this localization. I mean, it's definitely our American marketing team who generated this deck, but clearly for the UK, you'd want to be localizing that with an S. But lots of other localization, for example, localizing on weather or current trends in different areas of the world, or even just the country at the moment. You want to personalize on technology. And a big piece is personalizing on people's live user behavior and attributes. And we'll talk through a couple of examples here. So we have two messages here that are coming, one from a travel company, one from a music client of ours. So the travel company here is not just sending out a generic message, hey, we hope travel bans are going to be lifted soon, get 20% discount on your holiday. They're targeting to Maria. They know Maria's had an interest in Atlanta. They're saying that hotels are booking up quickly in that area. So they understand that the user is Maria, not just a generic user. They understand that bookings are going quickly in that area for whatever reason. Perhaps there's a conference there, and that she's interested in going to Atlanta. So this is a very highly personalized message that has a much higher chance of getting through and cutting through all that noise that we have all day long to get that click-through rate. A nice example on the right-hand side. So last Friday is a good example of this. 2 large albums dropped last Friday. The Dua Lipa album dropped, as did Pearl Jam's. Actually, my group of friends, 2 very different groups of friends, one would listen to Dua Lipa, one would listen to Pearl Jam. But clearly there, if the Dua Lipa audience is going to get messages about the phenomenal Eddie Vedder Pearl Jam album that dropped, which is awesome, called Gigatron, you should definitely download it. So if they get that message, then they're probably not going to be clicking through and opening it. So it's all about truly understanding your audience, what their interests are, and making sure those messages are personalized with the content that they're interested in. Equally as important as personalizing the content is personalizing the timing. So nowadays, we may consider, when should we send out a push? When should we send out an email? When's the most appropriate time to flash up a special offer or some engagement? And perhaps we're relying on debating in a room when this is. Is it a Monday? Is it a Tuesday? Is it 5? Is it 6? But tools like Leanplum can begin to understand, using machine learning and AI, when is the most appropriate time based on individual user behavior to open a message. And a phenomenal example of this is probably myself, actually. If you look at me, I think my boss is on this call. So let's say that I work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, maybe a bit longer sometimes. The best time to get a message through to me, optimal time would be about 8 p.m. in the evening, when I'm relaxed, when I'm welcoming and open to receiving those sort of messages. My other half at the moment works in a cocktail bar. At 8 o'clock in the evening is going to be making cocktails all night long, and definitely isn't going to be able to open up a message and read that when they should be making phenomenal mojitos. So the best time for them to receive a message is going to be in the morning. So delivering the message at the right time, when it can be opened and can be received, can have a significant impact on open rates and retention rates. So something else to consider when personalization. So some other push notice best practices we have here. You want to do dynamic personalization in the content. And what that means is, in the first part of the platforms that you may work with, there'll be a wealth of user data that we know about customers, where they are, what they're interested in, what the last thing they did on our site or app is, what their name is, what they last bought is. And we can bring that data live into a message so it's highly personalized. Perhaps they recently looked at a holiday in Orlando. They're based in London, and we know their name is Brooke, so we can send a message like that. We can bring real time, but the message that will come to me may be a message to David to a holiday in Rhodes, because he can't wait to get out of his flat as soon as he can. We also want to leverage things such as emojis, personalized emojis as well. And we also want to perhaps bring in images and most appropriate timing. When we bring all this in together, we can have a significant effect on those open rates. Another thing to consider is syncing the external experience with the internal experience. And Udemy is a brand that does this very well. For example, if you go onto their app and you begin to study and review and look at different courses, they've got some phenomenal offers on courses at the moment, some big discounts to help us find things to do during these times. They'll understand what you're looking at, and they'll make sure in an appropriate time that you'll get a message, identify perhaps the courses that you want to look at. So you click that message. But vitally, when you open the app or the digital experience, they're going to show you a personalized carousel based upon what you're looking for. So the chance to get a message that's relevant to what you've read and been interested before, unifying that with a synced up internal app experience, can have a phenomenal effect on conversion rates. I think personalization, and indeed the lifecycle topic that Brooke talked about earlier, are topics that we could do entire webinars and sessions on, so definitely happy to pick them up. But the last couple of things I have before we hand back to Brooke and a quick demonstration of Leanplum is a little bit about A/B testing, optimization, and then also a piece on analytics as well. I think nowadays there's great A/B testing platforms, and hopefully all the brands that we're speaking to today are doing a degree of A/B testing rather than just basing it on human opinion. Now, what sort of things should we be looking at when testing our messaging campaigns? Well, we definitely want to test the copy and the content. We want to be able to test different audience segments and what sort of channels we should be engaging with those segments with. We want to consider the timing. Do we trust a tool such as optimal time, or do we want to test that against what we think is the best time to send a message? We want to test channels. You want to test deep linking into different areas of our product to see how that affects conversions. And we want to test entire campaigns and journeys and user flows as well. But even further than that, with tools such as Leanplum, here we go, we can even test the UI and internal app experience as well. So do we have different segments of customers that should be seeing different content inside the app, different buttons, different images, perhaps different features, different pricing, different algorithms? Do we want to consider completely different journeys for different types of users to help them convert and learn from how they're behaving. One of our flagship customers that did this phenomenally well a couple of years ago was Tinder when they launched Tinder Gold. Prior to launching and rolling out Tinder Gold, they used Leanplum to test us in a range of different countries to a small segment of their customer base. And they wanted to test everything. They wanted to test the name of Tinder Gold. They wanted to test the pricing point. They wanted to test the different messaging that they could engage with customers with. And everything about this was tested to a granular detail and optimized prior to launching. The result of this is for a period of time, they were the top grossing app and hopefully found a lot of people find love over the last few years. The last thing we have before jumping into a 5-minute concise demonstration of Leanplum and how we can bring this all together is a little bit about actionable analytics. I think it's important whether we'll run whatever campaigns are running, whether it's a single push or email, all the way through complex multi-channel lifecycle engagement campaigns, to really understand how these campaigns are running and performing. Now, a lot of platforms out there will give you what's called vanity metrics. And by a vanity metric, I mean an average order value, a conversion rate, a session length. But actually, there's some real deeper metrics that we really need to consider. And we need metrics such as customer lifetime value or uninstall or opt-out tracking. A great example of this was a fashion brand that I used to work with. They used to send a wealth of email and push notifications. And every time they sent a push, their sales went up because they were very highly personalized and discount promotion-led messages. So they saw more sales from more push, and inevitably they sent more push. But what they didn't realize, and they soon began to realize, is that over time they were really turning their customer base off, and customers were not only spending more, but then they were opting out of messages because they were just being too intruded, and they also sometimes even uninstalling the app. So it's really key with analytics to not just look at those vanity metrics, but to dive into some of those deeper metrics as well. Okay, bear with me 1 second, we'll get to the next slide. Cool. So what I'm going to pass over to now is just to Brooke, because we've talked about a lot of things today. We've talked about why it's important to have retention and engagement. We've talked about how important it is to define user states and then build campaigns to those states. And then when we're building those campaigns, that we want to personalize them, and we want to make sure that we're testing the performance of those and then understanding the analytics. So Leanplum is a comprehensive platform that many brands, live and breathe all day in. But Brooke has very phenomenally managed to condense this into a very short, sort of 5-6 minute demonstration of the platform. So I'll hand over to a recording of Brooke. So that seems the best way to do this in 1 second. And then after that, we'll touch on a few app best practices that you can take away and hopefully embed in your businesses when you go back to your home offices next week.
Want to see my screen okay?
I can see it well.
Okay, hopefully it doesn't freeze this time. And I'll try to speed it up because you probably just listened to a lot of that communication. But essentially I wanted to walk you through starting an onboarding flow today, starting with our audience section. So here is where we have our saved segments, but we can also create a new segment. I love to start here because in Leanplum, this is where all the data is being stored, and you really get insights into what kind of segment you will be targeting with the campaign. So let's go ahead and start creating that segment. So I was going to do the country as the US, and we can take a look at refreshing the data and see what then comes up. So about 6,000 users. Then I wanted to also add in the Netherlands just to get a little bit of a larger pool there and see what that reads. So this is reading, we want the user to be in the US, but also the Netherlands, which is not possible. If you know how, let me know. That would be great to do. But I want to go ahead and merge those sections for you. So now we're encompassing both countries. Refresh that data. I also can take a time to quickly answer one of the Q&As that came in. You talked about how you're able to orchestrate campaigns based on maybe paid advertisements. So let's say you're using an attribution partner and you're running a specific campaign and you want to personalize that onboarding experience based on what campaign that user came in. So let's say they came in from a spring campaign. Cool. If we refresh the data, obviously there's not a lot of people in here, but it's an onboarding flow. So likely more people will fall into this segment in the future. Let's go ahead and save this as spring onboarding so we can then easily add it in when we're building out the segment or the campaign, sorry. Now going over into the campaign section, we just want to start a new campaign there. Starting with the goal category, obviously here it's onboarding, but it's good to just make sure that we have all the different aspects of the user journey with the rest of our campaigns. Then we go into the conversion event. So ideally, you know, what you want your users to be doing based on this campaign. Maybe for this one, we want that user to trigger that event account created. Cool. So that's the goal of the event. This also works as an exit trigger for the campaign. Then we go to the audience section. So here you'll have that full audience view. You can break out your segment here if you'd like, or because we just built it, we can quickly add it in from the save segment here. Cool. Just update those estimates. And we see that we will get the user there. Sorry, the Wi-Fi connection may be a little bit unstable here. Okay, there we go. What I really love is that we can give you insights into what channels these users are using or opted into, so you know which channels to leverage when you're actually building out the campaign. Then we go into delivery. We have two options. So we have scheduled, which you can do for a start date and time in the future. We also just released recurring campaigns, which can really take off the manual work if you wanted to send out, you know, different communication on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So that's really cool. But for this one, we want to do a triggered campaign based on the users first coming into the app. So let's say, you know, we can start it as of today, and we want to enter users to enter this onboarding flow when they first start the app. Simple as that. Then down here, we also have entry limits. So for an onboarding campaign, you know, ideally you only want a user to go through this experience once. So we can just click on one time ever. However, if you're doing a re-engagement campaign, maybe you want to do a user can enter this campaign once every 7 days or maybe once every 2 weeks, really up to you. Then we go to the action section. So really where you're you know, building out and actually creating this campaign. So maybe we want to first start with a push notification, and we say you're almost there, you know, come create your account today. Maybe another thing you want to do, as we talked so much about personalization, maybe you already know their first name and you can already add that in here. So a simple way to just personalize with their first name, just insert there. I know I like when I get a message with my name on it, so maybe this is nice to add. Cool. So if you remember in the audience, we have both the Dutch market and also the US. So how can we then easily personalize this message to incorporate both of those languages? Just by clicking here on personalize, we can segment out this message to the Netherlands. And now you see we'll have a default message, and then we can also switch to the Dutch message and change up what that text is for them. I'm still working on my Dutch, but I at least know how they say hi here. Cool. So that is a simple way in which you can send out one message, but again, incorporating for both languages. Then what happens if they open this push? Maybe we want to take them to somewhere specific in the app using a deep link. So now we have this reading as the user is going to trigger that campaign by first starting the app. They're going to open the push, and then they can come to a specific, maybe it's an account creation page within the app. So we have these little notifications here to really walk you through this process. And what we're going to say here is that we want to display or take this user there as soon as that push notification number 1 is open. Now, what if they don't go on the push and, you know, they just forget about us? Well, maybe we want to send them a little nudge a couple days later. So if you see what I did there, we have these other branch that creates a completely separate channel within this campaign. So maybe we want to send another push notification there and just have that be a little reminder. And then for this sub delivery, we can say it with a delay, and we can say maybe 2 days after that first push notification is sent but not open. So now we're really taking into consideration the different flows a user can go in based on their actions. Now, maybe you also want to take into consideration an email channel, right? And send them a welcome email on day one. You'll see you have these branches everywhere throughout the campaign creation. So you can just start another branch here and throw in an email. You can create your own drag and drop or upload your own templates, or create from our own templates as well. And then the sub delivery we can keep on the same day. First day, we also want to send them a welcome email along with that welcome push to then remind them to create that account. You can quickly create an A/B test and change the content and see what is working better for you. And then last but not least, you're going to go to that summary page just to have a quick check on everything and make sure everything looks good, and then starting the campaign. Now, I did have a results page that I wanted to show you. Let's see here. Maybe this. And once you start the results, you'll really see some live data in here for you. So maybe my screen is a little small now, but essentially you can see how many users initially started the campaign and which message that they either converted on or what was engaging and working best for you. So you can have that really real-time insights and understanding how your users are performing throughout every aspect of the campaign. Cool. I hope that was a good, quick overview for you all. I know there's a lot more that we can show you today, but I didn't want to take up too much of your time and leave some room for questions as well.
Cool. Thanks for that, Brooke. That was great and nice for the impromptu spot to the live. Not everything went as smoothly, but that's good. James, how are we set for time for questions?
Yeah. Have you finished the content bit of the talk now?
I guess I can talk through the last slide. I think we had some key takeaways, which are fire off 5 key takeaways.
Great.
We always like to leave super takeaways. If there is something that you were to take away from this, we would hope that it would be to consider defining those user states, the states of the journey. Consider which campaigns you want to align to those states.
I think we may have lost.
Okay, I lost some people.
You can carry on. Yeah, maybe that explains the video issue. But we're everyone's facing suboptimal bandwidth issues at the moment. We'll do our best. So, do you want to continue, Brooke?
Yeah. I think again, some of the main key takeaways, again, optimizing all channels, right, of your engagement, making sure you're focusing on each aspect of the user journey. A lot of people are putting a lot of money in upfront for attribution, but it's really these people who come to your app either organically or who have a proper onboarding experience where you showcase all of the benefits of your app and give them the right communication that eventually are those, long-term, really powerful customers for you. So I think we need to think a little bit further also down the life cycle here. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out to myself or David, and I see we have some here too.
Yeah, so I mean, Martin Hudak is asking, so what's the average retention for first-time app openers, and what would be your sort of ideal? I guess that would vary by vertical, but
Exactly. If you are a gaming app, typically you see really high retention for the first 30 days, and then it might drop off over time. Whereas banking apps, you see a monthly better retention, and you're not needing to go in there all the time. But a food diary, you should see a higher daily retention. So it really depends on which vertical and what you're getting your users into your app for. So I'd love to know a little bit more about, what specific vertical you're in, and then see how we can measure up with other companies in the industry.
While we're on that, what's the best way of contacting you guys afterwards if people want like more of a demo, or I don't know if Martin from the team is here, if he could paste if you've got a link or something like that, and then people who want a bit more can follow up.
Yeah, for sure. I
Okay,
think we have some people from the team on.
great. All
Maybe
right.
we can post
So maybe while we're
an email
going, they
address or something
can,
in the chat.
yeah, or contact email or something while maybe waiting for the last slide. So, hi, welcome back.
For sure.
We're just doing some Q&A here.
Yeah, typical, right?
Yeah, we're all facing some broadband issues with everyone probably furiously streaming Netflix and Zooming all over the world. So yeah, good to have you back. Just on this follow up to the previous question, in terms of optimal time for that first, app user. Again, it's going to vary by vertical, but what someone's asking, what's the optimal time to get them to spend?
Yeah. So, is that optimal? Is that how optimal time works? Or optimal time to spend is the question there.
Yeah, I think it's the question is if the user has only had one session, right? And a great question, because we actually know that we need some kind of history or session data to understand what that optimal time would be for that user based on when they would interact with the messages or when they would go into the app. So we do recommend at least 3 to 4 sessions. That way we have enough data to then set an optimal time. So for onboarding flows, we don't recommend.
Yeah, I think definitely with optimal time. The great thing is it continues to learn. But obviously with that first few sessions, and there's not a lot of data, but it tends to get more and more accurate, obviously, the more sessions and more information it can learn. And there's no limit to the amount of time that it can learn. So it doesn't stop learning after 3, 6 or 9 months.
And there's another one here. Do you measure app opens that are attributed to push, but not direct opens as well as direct opens? That's to say, they might have opened it but not seen the push. Is that a valuable metric?
Yes. So yeah, we will report, let's say if the conversion event was to open the app, they didn't necessarily need to click on the push to then track that conversion. But what we do is, oftentimes I'm looking at my phone as well, and I see these push notifications come in, and then it stimulates. It's top of mind. I've read it, but I don't necessarily click on it. So we do track, that activity and relate it back to that push notification.
Got it. And I had a quick question relating to the poll we had earlier, which I'm going to try and put back up on. Sorry, that was popping up, by the way. Do you have a clear app engagement strategy in place? A quarter of people said yes.
Wow.
We don't know. Maybe that's most say no, some say not sure. So in terms of when you're talking to clients about app engagement and coming in, what sort of state do you generally find them, and is it getting more mature now in terms of engagement and CRM? Does that vary by vertical? And then what's the sort of process you would sort of take people through to go from making these no's into a yes?
Yeah.
I think we can both probably touch on that a little bit. I mean, I obviously work from brands from day one before introducing them over to Brooke, and it's crazy. I mean, there's some brands and apps out there that have millions and like lots of millions and millions of monthly active users, and you go in there and there's like some brands will, especially the brands that have focused so much on building in-house technologies, because they haven't got the technology to be able to capably deploy a mobile engagement or good CRM, then it hasn't been a focus purely because they can't focus on it. Because if they had a strategy, then they've got no way to deploy it. So it is kind of these things where you need to have the strategy, but then you also need to have the technology in place. I would say that they speak to a lot of brands now, and putting in good CRM and good engagement tools is a massive priority. I think especially as we as Leanplum focus in the mobile first world and sometimes the mobile only world, a lot of apps are seeing a massive growth as traffic shifts from web to app. So brands are beginning to focus on it. I think the percentage that we see here is probably right. I'd probably say 1 in 5 brands that I go and work with, they have a great tool strategy in place, but they're looking for a better tool. And obviously, then we'll get into those conversations. But there's lots of brands who want to meet us first and have that conversation, not just about what a tool can do, but what sort of strategies they should be putting in place as well. Any comments on that, Brooke?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Oftentimes you see when new customers come on as well, I like to kind of go back to the basics, right? Really, that first couple of slides we showed where you break out user definitions, and making sure that that's clearly identified, so you have the right messaging and campaigns to roll up into that, and going back to what you're tracking, right? The data taxonomy needs to be correct and clearly laid out, so you're tracking the right things, and you have the right attributes to then create these messages and campaigns. So I always like to go back to basics, and then from there, you know, testing everything, making sure you're running your holdback groups or testing different content or timing or delivery of the message, to ensure that you are continuously optimizing that.
Got it. And in terms of the, you know, the kind of the people side of this. So again, you know, we've seen with apps, you know, you know, had been a lot of focus on UA, and people built big UA teams. And, you know, we've seen at App Promotion Summit, you know, UA teams growing and acquisition teams growing. What are the roles and the kind of job titles people, you know, need to put in place to support engagement? And what sort of people do they need to hire? What kind of skills? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on that and then hand over to Brooke again. I think the great thing about platforms, and there's other platforms out there for sure, but the good things with a lot of the modern day platforms, they're not just built for dev teams anymore. I think if you went back 3 or 4 years and you wanted to deploy tools like this, they were super complex. I know some of the even, you know, the ESPs or the larger marketing clouds out there, you know, you require incredible technical skills to get the maximum out of them. The benefits of a platform such as the Leanplum is they can really empower, you know, marketeers and digital teams whose focus isn't learning coding, but just deploying a campaign. So I think that expands the range of people that can, you know, leverage these tools. And I'll allow Brooke, who works with the clients a bit closer, to expand on the role question.
Yeah, the roles, that's a really good question. I'm gonna maybe comment more on how the different roles work together, because oftentimes we see that, you know, the marketing team has one KPI in one direction, then we see the product team has another KPI in a different direction. But really, these teams need to work hand in hand together. So I don't know if there's a role that can either better, you know, make sure that these teams are either more aligned, or if you're already doing that, that's fantastic. But they are so closely tied together that in order to really have an optimal experience and a good engagement and marketing strategy, they need to be aligned.
I think that's a good point. I mean, there's definitely teams that I've gone in and worked with where you have an email team over here that has this focus, and then you have a testing team over here that has this focus. And definitely 3-4 years ago when I was working in optimization, personalization, those teams were very separate. But I think these teams are coming a lot closer together now. And in the same way that tools such as Leanplum allow you to have A/B testing and email and push notifications and segmentation and personalization all in one platform, that's allowing and bringing teams to work together, you know, a lot closer rather than being these separate siloed divisions using siloed technology.
Great. Okay. Well, we're pretty close to an hour, so I guess we'll wrap it up. And so, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, you've got your emails there. And we've had a couple of team kindly also pasted in some stuff in the chat, and I guess I can follow up and get more of a demo. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us today. That was really great, and that was the final talk of this session. We've had a really good couple of days. It was a great way to end it, and yeah, really enjoyed that. So thanks everyone for joining. It was good to, you know, get a bit of the live demo actually was great once we got it going. And yeah, it's good to see inside the platform for a change, inside the guts of it. And often you get the theory, and yeah, it was good to actually see how this kind of works in practice. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So thanks to you guys, and hope you have a good weekend. Obviously won't be doing a huge amount, but hope it's a good one. There's yeah, there's so there's a networking app. I pasted it in the there's a networking Zoom room. I should probably have the details earlier, but that's been pasted in the app discussion board if anyone wants to join there. And Andre from Mobile Marketing Experts is there if anyone wants to socialize after this. And we're back next week with some more contents. You'll probably get a million emails about that. Sorry about that. We're still working the platform, but thanks very much to the guys, and yeah, see you all soon.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate everyone's time. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.